Katherine, I am so glad to see you, and I am really, really excited to dive into this topic with you today. So, the question that is on our mind is about mindset shifts. And this is a loaded question. I know that this can go into a million different directions, but what are some mindset shifts that you encourage women to make as a part of their health journey?
Great question. And I love this question because I spend so much time on this topic and helping people think a little differently. I think also the other reason I love this question, which is not your question, but is that we often jump ahead to the answers, right? Like we all want to just tell me what to do. I mean, I get people that even fourth and fifth visit coming back to me, we've worked through mindset. And okay, now can you just tell me what to do, right? And I'm like, oh, so you clearly didn't really work on those mindset pieces. So I think that mindset and our language that's involved with our mindset and not just sort of how we talk about it, but how we really believe and think about it is a super important piece of the process when it comes to nutrition. As I'm talking about it, I want to give one quick caveat, which is that I don't expect and I don't want anyone to expect that your mindset will change overnight. I think sometimes when we talk about these things, I get men and women who are frustrated that they aren't in a different mindset all of a sudden the next time that we talk. And I think this is like a lifelong process. The idea of sort of, can I engage this idea? Can I think about things a little differently is not something that I want any of y'all to walk away from and feel guilty about not being able to change by tomorrow. And so, really embracing the idea of even just exploring what some of these mindset shifts could look like is important to me as I work with people to think about sitting with just the value of introducing the idea to myself and then working into it and not sort of a quick fast process. I wish I had a cute little acronym. I don't, but I guess I could come up with one. Maybe someone out there can. But there's sort of like four different mindset shifts that I focus on. And these all come second to one of the previous videos that I've done with the Her Health Collective about foundations. So go back and listen to that one if y'all haven't already. But the first that I would think about is personalization. And I think a lot of people know this is true when it comes to nutrition, that we've started to sort of see that maybe it's not the same for all of us, that maybe there's not some big USDA plate that's going to work for everyone, but we still wish it weren't true, right? So I get a lot of people that think maybe there's just something I haven't stumbled upon. And I think one of the mindset shifts that has to be made is that it's got to be your own journey and my own journey. That what works for me is not going to be what works for anyone else in the world. And I think thankfully, like as we mature in age, we start to realize this about ourselves and our personalities. And the same is true for nutrition, that whatever is going to work for you is probably going to be different than anyone else that you can find. And rather than trying to mimic someone else and hearing what your neighbor is doing and how she lost weight, or what your mom is doing and how she got fixed her digestion problems, these are all things that might help you, but I would be focused more on the tools that your friends and family and neighbors are using and not so much trying to adopt exactly what someone else is doing. So that requires work, which is the part no one wants to put in. But I would say the first is that it is going to be a personal and unique journey. The second mindset shift that I really like to encourage, and if you've worked with me, so you know well that I'm super focused on curiosity and embracing this mindset of curiosity as just a critical piece of health, and not just nutrition, but all of health. I think we have so many things coming at us. We have sort of our own physical and mental symptoms and emotions. We have social media that wants to tell us 18 million different things and very conflicting at times. We have friends and family that want to tell us different things. And so, really, just this idea of instead of labeling something, instead of assuming something, being willing to sort of, as you're working on that unique plan, be curious and be aware and start to explore. And again, this part takes time, but this is the difference to me in the way that I work with clients as far as it relates to nutrition, and just giving someone a meal plan or giving them a prescription of what they should be eating, but instead helping with some tools and some resources, and then putting the work on your plate for all of you out there to really take the time to dig in and to be curious with, what is my body saying? How does this work for me? I always like to say, like, consider that maybe your body has something smart to tell you, because we as women oftentimes assume that our bodies are broken and that whatever my body is telling me is not right. It must be coming from this place of harm or trauma or brokenness. And that's probably true. And yet, so valuable, even more valuable to listen to what that is, to kind of explore what is it? What could this symptom mean? What, if I'm experiencing XYZ symptom, maybe that's my body's way of trying to tell me to slow down or to eat more or to exercise less, right? And there's a lot of things that our bodies can communicate, just like kids sometimes they come out sideways, right? Those symptoms aren't always direct and clear. Really being willing to sit with yourself and be curious as much as you can, I think, is valuable. The next mindset shift that I encourage people to make is consistency. And this maybe isn't such a mindset shift, but really working on this idea that as we think about health as a practice, that it's going to be something that I have to keep practicing. That consistency to me is where we miss a lot of times on old school diets or health plans, right? Is that they are oftentimes so extreme that I can't be consistent. And when I talk about consistency, I always want you to think about going even smaller and, like I always say, like almost obnoxiously slower than you want to make changes that are so small that they feel easy and yet you can do them day in and day out. So rather than taking on 6 different things that I'm going to add to my plate, or I'm going to do exercise every day, really trying to figure out, what if I just did once a week for the next month? And could I get good at that? And I always add in there that, like, success is so powerful. When we win, we see it with our kids a lot. When they achieve some things, there's confidence, there's success, and that is so motivating and so much more motivating than failure. And so I think for all of us, as we work on health, thinking about what can I be consistent with, and making change, no doubt, but like making that change so small that maybe someone else doesn't even notice you're making a change, but you're starting to see that you can do that. And then you move on to something else. So consistency is that one. And then the last one is just patience. So I think after talking about all 3 of those, personalization, curiosity, and consistency, patience maybe is our least favorite part. None of us want to wait. None of us, we all want the quick answer. And we are fed to believe that we can get a quick answer from a lot of things on social media. But understanding that this is sort of an ever evolving practice and a process, and that requires patience. And I think that's something, maybe the hardest of all the things that I've just talked about, to sort of really sit with and consider, what does it look like for me to be patient with this process? The one thing I'll add, though, is I always like to remind people that patience is not static. Patience is active, right? So just like some of us have learned with meditation, that meditation doesn't mean just sort of throwing my hands up and laying back and falling asleep kind of thing. It can, but that there's an active process of returning my mind to that space. And the same with patience, is that I want you to see change. I want my clients, I want all of you out there to see change, but it might be a lot smaller than you want it to be initially. And so what am I paying attention to? How am I being aware and curious? And noticing those little changes takes work, but that's where the patience comes in handy. So I think those are the 4 things that I really love to talk about.
Katherine, I love that so much. You said, consider your body has something smart to tell you. Mind blowing, because through so much of life and all the things that we have going on, we constantly believe that there is an easy answer and that we can look for a trick or a hack or a quick way to the other side. But most of the time we are not listening to what our body is actually telling us. And there's so much power in that. And throughout everything you said, all 4 of yours, what I kept hearing again and again is that it's going to take time. And I mean, that's kind of what they all go back to. And the patience is a big part of that. And it is so hard, but your health is worth it. And a lot of times it's going to be more sustainable if you do take that slower road to whatever that goal is or that journey is. Thank you so much for sharing those with us.